We have a unique opportunity today to explore an economic journey of transformation and growth that takes us across continents, cultures, and decades to the vibrant heart of Southeast Asia, Malaysia. This isn't just a story about numbers and figures, it's a story of human ambition, visionary leadership, and unyielding perseverance. A tale of a nation that transformed itself from a colonial producer of raw materials into a diversified, upper-middle-income economy.
Assalamualaikum. Good day, Dr. Shah and my fellow class. I am MOHAMAD IZRUL ZAHIN and I am honored to share insight on Malaysia's socio-economic landscape. Our topic is about the reason for uneven income distribution between ethnic groups in Malaysia. Together, we will explore this topic, supported by solid example and data from credible studies. Did you know that in Malaysia, top 20 of income earners control over 46% of the national income, while bottom 40 own less than 16%. This figure reflects the economic struggles of our multi-ethnic nation. Let us visualize this. Imagine a pie chart. The largest slice goes to the top earners, dominated by one group, while others receive only crumbs. This highlights not just economic inequality, but a deeper challenge to achieving national unity. Income distribution refers to how nation wealth is shared among its population. In Malaysia, income inequality goes beyond class. It intersects with ethnicity. This issue traces back to the colonial era, where ethnic groups were segregated by economic roles. Bumiputra dominate agriculture, Chinese led in commerce, and Indian work in plantations. Post-independence policies like NEP designed to empower Bumiputra and reduce inequality. Despite progress in poverty reduction and middle class growth, income gaps remain. For example, data shows in 2019, average income for Chinese household was 1.4 times higher than Bumiputra and 1.2 times higher than Indian. This disparity is not just about the numbers. It affects access to quality education, employment opportunities, and wealth accumulation, ultimately influencing the nation's social cohesion. So, today's presentation, we will study the causes of income inequality among Malaysian ethnic groups. We will examine historical context, structural challenges, policy shortcomings, and global factors, all supported by robust data and studies. Understanding these factors help us address the issue and promote equality and unity for all Malaysians. This concludes my segment. Now, I will hand over to Ms. Faza to discuss on historical context. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Israel. Good day, class. I am FAZAHIA binti SUPARMAN, and I will take you through the historical context of uneven income distribution among ethnic groups in Malaysia. On this section, we will focus on the economic role shapes during the colonial era and how subsequent events like the 1969 racial riots and the new economic policy NEP shapes income distribution in Malaysia. Let us begin by examining Malaysia's colonial past. Under British rule, economic roles were distinctly divided by ethnicity. The Bumiputra comprising Malays were largely confined to subsistence agriculture, such as rice farming. The Chinese, on the other hand, dominated trade, commerce, and mining industry. Meanwhile, the Indians were brought in as laborers to work on rubber and palm oil plantation. This segregation was not an accident but a deliberate colonial policy to sustain economic control by the British, as highlighted by Chakravarti and ROSLI in 2005. While these rules ensured steady economic activity were entrenched disparities between the ethnic groups, laying the foundation for the uneven income distribution we see today. Next, we move to social event from independence to new economy policy era. We independence in 1957 and we see how this entrenched economic division continued to shape Malaysia's socio-economic structure. Despite gaining independence, economic inequality along ethnic lines persisted, ultimately culminating in a tragic 1969 racial riots. This event was a stark reminder of the consequences of income inequality and social exclusion. In response, Malaysia government introduced the new economic policy NEP in 1971. This policy is to aim to eradicate poverty and restructure society by redistributing wealth, especially to the Bumiputra community. As we can see, poverty rates fell significantly from year 1976 to 2016, according to Gwen in year 2000. Rural Malays saw increased access to education and job opportunities. A growing Bumiputra middle class emerged, particularly in urban areas. However, there are limitations where NEP also faced criticism. Its implementation often benefited urban elites while leaving rural Malays behind, as noted by Chakravarti and ROSLI in year 2005. Furthermore, if resentment among non-Bumiputra groups were perceived the policy as preferential and unfair. In the end, Malaysia's colonial legacy combined with challenge of restructuring society post-independence established a framework for the uneven income distribution we aim to address today. That's all for me now. I appreciate your time and focus. Let's welcome Ms. Rusni as they dive into the next section for our presentation. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, I am SHAHEILA ROSLI and I will continue the discussion by analyzing the structural factors that contribute to uneven income distribution among ethnic groups in Malaysia. Specifically, I will cover three critical aspects: education access, the urban versus rural divide, and employment and wage discrimination. Education plays a vital role in bridging income disparities. Yet, unequal access to quality education remains a significant barrier for many Bumiputra, particularly in rural areas. Studies by Khalid in 2011 revealed that education opportunities for Bumiputra have historically lagged behind those of Chinese and Indian communities. For example, rural schools often lack proper infrastructure, experienced teachers, and access to advanced learning materials compared to urban schools, which are predominantly Chinese majority. This disparity directly impacts literacy rates and higher education enrollment. As of 2014, tertiary enrollment for Bumiputra was 45% lower compared to Chinese students, highlighting a systemic gap in access to opportunities. Without equitable education access, Bumiputra are often confined to low-income jobs, perpetuating the cycle of poverty. Next, let's examine the urban-rural divide. Malaysia's economic growth has been concentrated in urban areas, where industries like manufacturing and services dominate. Rural areas, however, remain reliant on low productivity agriculture. According to Sa'ari in 2015, this divide disproportionately affects rural Bumiputra, as urban Chinese communities benefit from better access to infrastructure, job, and market. Rural households' income growth has consistently lagged behind urban households. Having said that, the income gap between rural and urban has risen from 46.7% in 1970 to 57.9% in 2019. This divide has further widened wealth accumulation. As an illustration, rural Bumiputra households are 70% more likely to rely on subsistence farming, which offers minimal financial returns compared to urban business ventures. Finally, employment opportunities and wage gaps reflect systemic discrimination in the private sector. Research by Yamamoto and Suzuki in 2021 shows that even with comparable qualifications, Chinese workers are often favored for managerial and high-paying roles over Bumiputra candidates. This bias is particularly evident in privately owned businesses, where Bumiputra representation in top-tier positions remains below 20%. The disparity is compounded by cultural perceptions of productivity, which often unfairly disadvantage Bumiputras. Moreover, Bumiputra workers tend to dominate lower-paying public sector roles, while Chinese workers hold a significant share of high-paying positions in industries like finance and technologies. This segmentation results in the Chinese community earning, on average, 40% higher wages than Bumiputra in the private sector. This marks the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for your kind attention and interest. Now, I would like to invite my teammate Mrs. Masturina to continue with the next topic.
Assalamualaikum. I am MASTURINA binti JOHARI. I will be discussing the policy challenges related to income inequality in Malaysia. These include analysing the shortcoming of the new economic policy and the potential of the Shared Property Vision 2030 to address systemic gaps and ensure a fairer distribution of income across ethnic groups. New economic policy aim to address poverty and reduce income inequality, particularly among the Bumiputra. While it made a significant stride in poverty reduction, it also faced several challenges that limited its effectiveness. First, favoring urban elites over rural Bumiputra. Research by Abdul Hakim in 2001 revealed that most of economic benefit of NEP went to urban elites within the Bumiputra community, bypassing the rural population. For example, rural Malays remain heavily dependent on subsistence farming, while urban Malay gain access to higher paying jobs and lucrative government contracts. And the second is intra-ethnic inequality. The new economic policy inadvertently widened the income gap within the Bumiputra community, as highlighted by Chakravarti and ROSLI in 2005. While the policy increased Bumiputra representation in corporate ownership, it concentrated wealth among a small, politically connected elite. While the NEP was a step forward in addressing ethnic income disparities, its limitation underscore the need for the more inclusive and balanced policy framework. Okay, now let us turn to the path toward inclusivity shared property vision 2030. This policy aims to create a fair and equitable economic system benefiting all Malaysians regardless of ethnicity. There are three key features of the shared property vision 2030. The first is strengthening B40 income by targeting the bottom 40% income group through job creation, entrepreneurship programs, and access to education. Second, reducing wealth disparities, expanding opportunities for rural and underserved communities, particularly in East Malaysia. Third, fostering inclusivity, shifting from ethnicity-based affirmation action to need-based policies to reduce resentment among non-Bumiputra groups. The Shared Property Vision 2030 represents a critical opportunity to rectify systemic issues and achieve greater socio-economic harmony in Malaysia. However, its success will depend on transparent implementation and sustained effort to ensure that all Malaysians, regardless of ethnicity, truly benefit. With that, I conclude my section of this presentation. Thank you for your attention, and I will pass it to Ms. ATIQAH to continue with the last part. Thank you.
Hello economic class, I am ATIQAH SHUIB, your last presenter. I will address how globalization and market forces have amplified income disparities among ethnic groups in Malaysia. Lastly, I will also conclude our presentation by summarizing the key findings and proposing actionable steps for a more equitable future. Globalization has undoubtedly transformed Malaysia's economy. It brought tremendous growth to export-driven industries such as electronics and palm oil, but the benefits have been unevenly distributed. For instance, urban areas, especially those dominated by Chinese communities, have gained the most from globalization, as highlighted by Go et al. 2023. The concentration of trade hubs like Kuala Lumpur has created economic opportunities in urban centers, while leaving rural regions, predominantly Bumiputra, lagging behind. This disparity is evident in employment statistics. Urban Chinese workers are more likely to be employed in high-paying export-related jobs, while rural Bumiputra remain dependent on low-productivity agriculture. This divide is not just economic, it perpetuates the social and educational gaps we have already discussed. FDI, a key driver of globalization, has had a surprisingly limited role in reducing inequality. Despite attracting billions in investment, much of the FDI has been concentrated in urban trade hubs, especially only focusing in main sectors such as manufacturing and services, further widening the urban-rural divide. Notably, less than 10% of FDI-related infrastructure projects directly benefit rural areas. This imbalance highlights the need for government intervention to ensure FDI supports inclusive growth rather than exacerbating existing disparities. Throughout this presentation, we have identified the historical, structural, and policy-driven factors that have perpetuated income disparities in Malaysia. First, the colonial legacy established deep-rooted economic roles based on ethnicity. Next, structural challenges like unequal access to education, urban-rural divides, and wage discrimination continues to widen the gaps. Last but not least, policies like the NEP, while beneficial in some aspects, require significant refinement to address the persistent inequalities. So, to build a united and prosperous Malaysia, we must transition from ethnicity-based affirmative action to needs-based policies. These policies should focus on reducing poverty and promoting equitable access to education, healthcare, and employment opportunities, ensuring that no one is left behind. As Tunku Abdul Rahman once said, we must each always think first of Malaysia, of the national need, and least of ourselves. Let us commit to this vision of inclusivity for the betterment of all Malaysians. That wrap up my group presentation for today. Thank you so much. Bye!